echar mis versos del alma. Y antes de morir yo quiero echar mis versos del alma. Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera, Guantanamera, Guajira, Guantanamera. No me pongan en lo oscuro a morir como un traidor. No me pongan en lo oscuro a morir como un traidor. Yo soy bueno y como bueno moriré.
That's black. Can't see. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, dear friend.
Dear Mr. Ambassador, I'd like to thank you on behalf of Ankara University for participating in our international webinar series. We are planning to have different Latin American ambassadors from now on, but you are leading the group and you are going to be the first participant today. Thank you very much for that once more.
Thank you very much for your invitation. It's good to be a pioneer. For good or for bad, but that is always good, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I think we should proceed to our questions directly because we have around 1 hour to speak. And we know that 1 hour will not be enough to discuss widely our subjects, especially our bilateral relations, but it can give us an idea. So I would like to proceed with my first question. The first thing I would like to ask is about you, yourself, and your mission in Turkey. Could you please be so kind to introduce yourself to the participants of our webinar, and I will tell you right away, as soon as my friends inform me how many people are watching us. So would you please so kind to introduce yourself to the participants of our webinar and say a few words about your feelings on your mission in Turkey?
Well, first, Dr. Neyati, thank you very much for the invitation to have this opportunity to share some views and information regarding our bilateral relations between Cuba and Turkey in this complex moment of mankind. I would be very flattered to be a pioneer in this process, in this exchange with Latin American ambassadors. I want to begin saying that I'm a diplomat for almost around 20, a little bit more than 20 years. I've been serving before in 3 other posts, 2 times in the United Nations, in there in New York, once in Geneva. And then my fourth post has been here in Turkey, my first as ambassador. And I'm really glad to be here posted for my first term of ambassador. Because of many reasons. You know, Turkey is a really fantastic country. There are certain reasons that made me very happy to be here. First of all, is the kind of love, the kind of dear feelings that Cuba produced here in Turkey with everybody. You know, I feel really very flattered for this. You know, wherever I go, whenever I talk with anyone here, love Cuba. You know, it doesn't matter, you know, the political background, the ideological background, the economic resources. Everybody love us, love our culture, our music, like a Guantanamera that you were were singing at the beginning of this exchange. About our history, about our leaders, you know, Fidel Castro, Che Guevara, for me, it's been impressive, you know, the way I see that you think the song Comandante, hasta siempre comandante. Wherever I go, people know this song, even in Spanish. Right. And, you know, that is a really, a nice situation for me. Other thing is your people. You know, you are so friendly here, you know, not only to me, to everybody, you know. Turkish people are amazing people. You know, also is very impressed a lot to me. For example, your patriotism, the way that you defend your ideas, your country. You know, this is for Cuba. This is very dear too. You know, because for us, both of us, you know, motherland is first. And here in Turkey, when you see that, is also very impressive to me. Other issue, for example, is the kind of history you have here in Turkey. It's not easy, for example, to be in the place that you read in your history book. You know, when you are a child in Cuba, you know about Constantinople, the Roman Empire, Troy, and when you come here into Turkey and see all of this, to be part of this is amazing. And you know, you are you are important, and your beautiful cities, all one, the ancient one, is very much impressive. Sharing and knowing more about Mustafa Kemal Atatürk life, you know, someone that important for the world is also very much dear to me. So there are other reasons, but I think, as you say, that we have around an hour, and we can be talking here a lot about you know, my feelings on Turkey. You know, very short, I really think to be posted here, you know, as my first ambassador attorney in my life. You know, it's other reason, the history, the important role of Turkey in the region or for the world. There are other reasons, but let us stop here because we have to continue, you know.
Yes, thank you very much, Ambassador Amoros. For those people that have just connected to our program, I would like to repeat once more. We're together with His Excellency, Mr. Ambassador Luis Alberto Amoros Núñez, Ambassador of Cuba in Turkey, and we have just started, so you haven't lost much. Mr. Ambassador, the second question is an actual one. Is about the most important event of this year. Could you please give us some information on the difficulties of COVID-19 pandemic in your country and the measures taken in your country?
Well, I think that it's not a simple question. It's a very complex one, you know. Indeed, not only you know, to start talking about Cuba, we have to talk first regarding the impact of this event for the whole world. It's not only a sanitary or health crisis. It's a crisis that is affecting the economy, the trade, it's affecting the movement, it's affecting the tourism, it's affecting everything in life. You know, it's very sad that in this, before the pandemic, we had the situation that many people were at that time already affected by this, you know, by hunger, by access to, you know, to important things. You know, more than 3 billion people, they don't have the possibility to wash their hands because they don't have it a public, you know, sanitary way to do it. Unfortunately, too, you know, in this time where we need more solidarity to overcome this situation, we have been facing, for example, the lack of leadership, is the leadership in the most important countries of the world, and mainly the most powerful countries. But the contrary, we have seen more individualism, more selfishness, more being far from solidarity, and this is making this crisis worse. In the case of Cuba, we also have to begin saying that Cuba, for example, our economy is not now, historically born like this. It's a very open economy. So it depends a lot on, the trade, the international circumstances. So that make our life, that make the situation of Cuba really complex in this moment. We know that everybody, well, that it has been said by the most important international organization, like IMF, World Bank, and others, that the global economy will be affected in more than 5%. The GDP general, the gross
going to fall. Yes.
will be really affected. In Latin America, the situation is that it will be affected. It will be a fall down of 5.3 decrease on the GMP, and that is very complex. And we in Cuba, we have to, we have to be connected with this reality. The decrease of investment, direct investment, of tourism would be, people are talking about the decrease of 25 and 30% in our region and globally. The trade will be really impacted. So when you see all of this, we be part of this complexity because the characteristic of our economy. Another thing is that we came, the last year, we had some economic difficulties, mainly due to the strengthening of the blockade of the US against Cuba. Probably we have to talk a little bit longer about that. I don't want to
I'm going to ask about the embargo, about the blockade too later on. But okay. What were the measures taken against COVID-19, Mr. Ambassador?
But just I wanted to put this in the context because, to talk about the measures, you have to see everything in the context of that. Yes. So we came some difficulty because of the blockade effect. Mainly because of that, we came from some difficulty from last year. The access to oil, energy, that was one of the main targets of the blockade last year of an administration from administration. We also had difficulties coming for the payment of our external debt. We make a big restructuring of our debt, and we had to make payments on that. And that creates some difficulties on that. So now we're coming from this moment, this year, March 11, that was the first, was the moment that we had the diagnosis, the first three cases, 3 Italian tourists that were in Cuba. So that make, we are coming to this moment with a great difficulties on that because of mainly because of blockade, the reason I explained before. Now coming to the situation that we are, we have to stop and to close our borders, and that implies, to stop the tourist activities on Cuba, that they are very important for our economic life. We face difficulties regarding the export of very important products from Cuba, not because we have a shortage or because we have the difficulties on them, just because the demand of the international market was collapsed have a contraction because of that. I'm talking about the production of the exports of sugar, the cigars, rum, that are very dear, very important to us. At the same time, in the internal life of the country, we have to paralyze many economies areas, because of all these difficulties. Nevertheless, let me tell you that has been very important. Before coming to the outbreak of the pandemic, the Cuban government adopted or designed a plan in order to confront these the difficulties. The plan was we had been lucky enough to be, to have time to prepare the plan and to prepare the measures in this regard. So, as I told you before, according to this plan, we have to close our borders. We have to stop the school for all school activities. We have to paralyze many economic activities in the detail levels. Stores were closed. We paralyzed the public transportation. So we took many measures in order to stop, the spreading of the virus. At the same time, we also took many measures in advance in order to have the Cuban health system well prepared for that. All
Yes.
our doctors, the students for medicines, the nurses, all the staff connected with public health receive training, receive a preparation in order to prepare for this. We fortunately we have a very strong, that's very important for Cuba.
Yes.
That we have a very strong health system.
Excuse me, that's going to be precisely the next question. But
okay.
Between these questions, one little thing I would like to ask. You mentioned that you had to close your airspace and the boundaries naturally, as many or most of the countries did in the world. But I was personally affected of this. We were planning with my wife to travel to Cuba, and we couldn't because of this pandemic. When are you planning?
You have to go. You have to go soon. I know.
We have the airway tickets. We will go. But when do you see possible the opening of the airspace of Cuba, Mr. Ambassador?
Let me tell you. I cannot. I cannot predict that. I don't have enough information to predict this. But what I'm sure is that the most important strategy that the government has is just to stop, the the transmission, the food transmission in Cuba. This is a first. We've been, how to say, we have been very much successful on that. In our system right now, for example, we have almost 10 days without any person dead because of a virus. We have a recovery of 85% of the infected cases. That have been 2,200 cases we had in Cuba. Mm-hmm. We have it 85 for them, already recovering for that. We have it amount of people in hospital, but it's not that much. So the first thing for us is just to control this. After this, we will take all the measures. Of course, we are let me tell you that we are in the process of preparing, our tourism industry. That is very important for us. We took so many measures, remodeling, rebuilding places, trying to use this moment of the pandemic, these 3 months, in order to upgrade them, to put it in better conditions. We are preparing our airports You know, recently we had a news that the second airport is in Cuba, the one in Varadero, is ready to receive tourists or to receive passengers for all over the world. So I cannot telling you that that will be done tomorrow. But what you could be totally sure is that when we open it, we will be in total condition to control the disease. People will be totally sure that when you come, for example, that you could be totally safe. You know, there will be any difficulty, you know, any difficulty to receiving you and your wife in Cuba.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. So the next question would be about the healthcare system. We all know that Cuba has a very important and developed healthcare system, and some specific medications for some treatments are known all around the world. How did the Cuban healthcare system help on the fight against the pandemic?
Well, for Cuban has been really important, you know, to have a system so solid like this. You know, as you know, is a free, affordable to everybody. It takes care of a prevention first. That is one of the pillars. Is supported by the national industry, pharmaceutical biotechnology national industry, very well developed, as you say. So we have a very important strength in order to, you know, to keep the Cuban safe. We in this system, for example, we were able, or we have been able to track everybody at the level community, you know, through the doctor and nurse of a family. So all the students for medicine in Cuba are participating in the program that they make diagnosis. Every day they visit different houses in order to track everybody in Cuba, to track the people that can be affected, to track the most vulnerable one, to try to help them as much as possible. You know, that has been one of the reasons that our system, we have not suffered any collapse of the system. You know, the system is working perfectly. We don't have any difficulties, any shortage on that. Even despite of the blockade, you know, we've been managing this. Let me tell you that the industry, biotechnology industry, we produce exceptional products. One of them was used in China. Is interferon alpha 2B. We call the company that produced this is a public company. They call this product Everferon. You know, this was one of the main products used in the protocols in China, in Wuhan, in the fighting against the virus.
Could you please repeat the name of the medication? Could you please repeat the name of the medication?
Everferon.
Interferon, right?
Is interferon alpha 2B. The trademark of this is Everferon. We have also, and that is a very important, you know, nowadays, is the one product that they you know, this company named Cubinsa. This product is the CIGB, CIGV 258. This is you know, the technical name of this. But this peptide, there is some people call that it could be like a helping vaccine or something. This product helps to attack something very important. You know, people are affected by the COVID. You know, when they respond naturally to the disease against the virus, they can create a shock of inflammatory microorganism. You know, and then the one that make you died most of the cases is that you have this inflammatory condition that is overreaction, national overreaction against the virus. So we created a product, that we had a product that helped to fight against this. So we have 3 prototypes of vaccines that can help, 2 of them to help their immune system to work against the virus. So we have a kind of options against this. Some of the one I mentioned to you that are helping a lot in order to avoid that people come to the critical situation. That is the one that you died. 80% of the people affected, they come to critical situation. 80% of these people that come to critical situation, they die. This is a reality. So what we are doing with this some of this product is just to stop this trend. And then in Cuba, for example, not 80% of the people come to, not 20% of the people come to critical situation. They come only 7% of the people. And from these people that come to this situation, 80% they can survive instead of the only 20 or 30 that was more or less the proportion. So they are very good products. They have been now in China, in India, we are testing another product too. We have a joint venture there with a company from India, and they are testing in many people. It's a ituzumab is the name of this. It's a monoclonal antibody. And this has been really important also in order to avoid to come to critical situation. I just mentioned some of them. I cannot mention all of them because that would it would take hours here, but we have around more than 20 products that they are very good, innovative, that they can prevent and help, the help to in order to avoid come to critical situation, to critical phases. And when you come to critical phases, to make the treatment very sophisticated in order to fight against the virus consequences.
Thank you very much for the details, Mr. Ambassador. So next question would be the cooperation.
But no, sorry, because I forgot to say something. Sorry for that.
Go ahead, please.
No, what I forgot to say is that our national system is also helping internationally. We have it right now more than 20, around 30 brigades, international brigade, medical brigade, doctor, nurses, but medical doctors in 26 countries, more than 2,500 doctors spread all over the world in order to help other countries to fight against the virus. One of the most emblematic one was the brigade that we had in Lombardy, in Italy. They returned.
I saw the news today. They were coming back, I think, to Cuba.
They returned to Cuba yesterday. They received very much a thank in Italy for fighting against the virus. But we have a brigade. We have brigade in China. We have brigade in United Emirates, in Kuwait, in Africa, South Africa. And this brigade joined the Cuban doctors or Cuban solidarity teams that we had already deployed in 59 countries all over the world. So that has been a very substantive support, solidarity support. That's the way that we believe that can be done. We are very glad. Yesterday we watched the interview of President Erdogan explaining that your help, your contribution to more than 100 countries, sending medical supplies and all the supplies to these countries. And for Cuba, this is a way to solve this problem. You cannot go to the selfish way I told you at the beginning, that is not helping at all in order to make it the fight against the virus.
Exactly. So my next question was going to be about the cooperation, but precisely about the cooperation between our two countries during the present pandemic. what has been done and what can still be done on the pandemic to cooperate between our two countries?
I think that we have it. We having ways to cooperate in the health sector. Is the area one of the sector that we already had past experiences in the between our two countries. For example, you are developing, the respiratory ventilators, done by you. We are trying to have cooperation with companies here in Turkey in order to have some productions in Cuba and to have some cooperation in this regard. As I told you before, we have these more than 20 products, very innovative one that we are using in other countries. We are using in Cuba. Why not having them in Turkey? Yesterday I remember that the president explained that Turkey is fighting in order to be self-sufficient in, to have your own pharmaceutical production. You import some of the products that you are treating. Patient for the COVID. We would be very much glad to having cooperation in this regard. We already started some cooperation, for example, in the case of vaccines against cancer. We are, business going on and projects going on with Turkish companies and with the Turkish institution on that. So, but for this virus, that can be, a possibility. You have it, Cuba, we have it a great cooperation with China. As I told you, we use we make a great cooperation for one of these products, the interferon alpha 2B, and we created there, and we are developing a technopark with China to produce all biotechnologies or the main biotechnologies innovative product that we have in Cuba. Why not having this in Turkey, for example? Okay. There are sectors in Cuba that we really need a great cooperation. Is for example, the situation of agriculture. We face one of the difficulties that we face in the crisis is that we import many of the food that we need, and we have it. We are trying to put our agriculture in condition to produce all our needs, and Turkey can be very helpful on that. There is a very important project with the Ministry of Agriculture here with TICA in order for the production of some important seeds like chickpeas, and we, there we have a field that we can cooperate a lot, in agriculture, because we probably soon, we will have a shortage in the, in the food production because of one of the consequences of the crisis is that we have a fall down, stopping many work chains, and that include the agriculture and food produce. So why not to having a great cooperation on this? We would be very glad on that, and to having and to receive a cooperation on health from Turkey in this regard. I can mention other areas, for example, in the case of tourism, in the case of metallurgic industry, in the case of transportation. So in the case of steel industry, where we need cooperation, in the case of chip yard and for production of chips, there are areas that you have a great development and you can help us. And there are areas where we can help, for example, in the case of health product, pharmaceutical medicines or products, to help Turkey to be self-sufficient on that with the transmission of the technology, transfer of technology that can be very much helpful.
Thanks, Mr. Ambassador. We just hope to see that technological park done with us, with Turkey too, in the near future. And the agricultural field, as you mentioned, is very important. I think Turkey can support by some means the agricultural development of Cuba and the continuation of the production in the country. The next question would be, would you please point out some specific sectors? Actually, you mentioned some, but some more like tourism, agriculture, pharmaceutical industry maybe, and how they were affected during the pandemic. There's some specific sectors. Maybe we could start with tourism, maybe.
Yeah. In the tourism, we have been very much affected. Cuba, Turkey relied on the tourist industry in order to support our economy. The Cuban life. We have to stop the entrance to the countries in the on March, the 20th of March, more or less like this. We stopped, the entrance of foreign tourists. We had at that time in Cuba 60,000 tourists. All of them. Most of them, they left the country. Some of them, they wanted to stay. They preferred to stay in Cuba. They felt safe there. I don't know, including some Turkish friends. I know that they prefer to stay there and they still in Cuba.
Yes, but, I had read about a group, a multinational group that was in the Comodoro Hotel. If I'm not mistaken.
And there are other hotels too. There people are staying, and they are feeling very, very, very well. But indeed, we have been very much affected. Of course, as I told you before, the blockade impacted a lot on the tourism. Even before the crisis, we have some measures, or we suffer some measures taken by the Trump administration, for example, trying not stopping the flights to many cities of Cuba, try to stopping the cruise activities from the U.S. to Cuba. That was very important. Right now, recently, it was announced that the only American U.S. hotel, or the only hotel in Cuba run by the American company, U.S. company, Marriott, was had to stop its activities in Cuba. That was opened. This hotel was opened during Obama time, but now it's not. It shouldn't be working anymore because of the measures taken. So we have an impact. So normally, in the last 2-3 years, we have been receiving around 4.7, 4.5 million tourists. It's clear that we will not come into this situation. But anyhow, we have a great infrastructure in the tourism. Nowadays, we will be like Turkey, very much powered by the health tourism, because of all the infrastructure that we created in Cuba. We fine-tuning all our infrastructure. So we have conditions to overcome this situation. In the agriculture, we didn't have that. When they are produced from agriculture, for example, our cigars, that they're very famous, that we didn't have that much impact. The impact that we have is that we cannot sell them, because you have to make the transportation, air transportation to send the cigars abroad. And right now it's a stop everywhere. But we have in them already, and we know that they will come back for good. If anyone want to smoke a real cigar, they have to be Cuban. No doubt on that. So we have in this, our biotechnology industry has not been affected. So it's very much right now is helping a lot of Cuba because we are making a lot of supply to different countries. So we have more power than before in order to have ourselves on that. We have an impact inside Cuba, as I told you before, different sectors that we are stopped, transportations, the retail sales, other areas that we had affected, but we are in the condition to overcome that. But again, I know that we will come later on, as you say, to deblocate. I don't want to insist that much on that, but later on, I'm going to make a couple of comments on this. Okay.
Yes, we have one question, Mr. Ambassador, regarding two specific fields. The question is, in Cuba, one of the two most acclaimed subjects of the regime is said to be education, and the other one is medicine. This is a question that was sent. Can the ambassador talk about the breakthroughs in education and medicine? And before leaving the floor to you, I would like to point out something. I've traveled to Cuba many times, since the mid-90s maybe. And
you were too young, as a teenage going there.
Yeah, I was quite young. Not that much, but yes, I was younger. And well, I have seen one specific thing about medicine, the absence of money. And it was on my first trip. My first trip was accompanying the Minister of Health of those times, Yildirim Aktun'a, may he rest in peace. So we had the opportunity to see the medical system, the health system as a whole. And the most important thing I had seen with my eyes was the absence of money in medicine. So that's one thing I can say, but whatever you would like to express about education and healthcare, I can see that it's more than welcome for the people who are watching us.
Okay. So just to continue on the medicine, and both of them, they are for Cuban, real human rights. You born with this, not any for Cuban. For us, when you born in Cuba, you know that you're supposed to live for around almost 80 years. This is the life expectancy in Cuba. That you would be vaccinated against 13 diseases, since you are a boy. That you will be having access to any surgery, whatever kind of surgery, even if it's $1 million surgery, by free. That you will be having a special treatment, access to special treatment, no matter what they cost. That you, for example, for ladies when they are pregnant, that they're supposed to have many consultations by free and all the tests done and all the medicines done. So you born with this in your mind. For you is something intrinsic for the Cuban, and that make our indicators really exceptional. All around the world, but in the Americas per se, we have in the highest level of life expectancy. This has been one of the reasons, for example, that 80% of the people affected by the coronavirus in Cuba has been elderly people, because we have the population of elderly people that are more than 20%, more than 60 people with 60 or more year are the more than 20% of the population, and soon will be 30. 2030 will be this, and that is that you have access to all this by free since you born. It's a very. Someone told me that could be very costly, but it's costly, but at the same time it's very efficient. It's is based, so we pay less that for person that you can pay it in the US. They pay there 10 times. They spend 10 times more of money there in the US. But at the same time, this medicine in many countries are affordable only for people that have the money. And this is not the case in Cuba. In Cuba, it's for everybody. No money, nobody. If you have $1 per month, or you have it, or you having hundreds of or thousands or millions of dollars, it doesn't matter. The question is that you have it. And the same applies to education. In Cuba, 10% of the populations have a highest, high level education. So 1 of every 10 has gone to university. The most of the average of our population is 12 grades. In Cuba, there is not at all the task of people that they know how to read and to illiteracy in Cuba is 99%, 99.9%. Only 0.1% of the population, they are illiterate. So the same applies to us. We are very proud for having this, for having this access that is only, the only condition, for example, to come to university is the talent. It doesn't matter the money you have. It doesn't matter your color. It doesn't matter your religion. It doesn't matter anything. The only important to come there is just to prove that you are talented person, and you make your test and you come there. And all universities, the 22 universities from Cuba, they are free and affordable to everybody. The books, everything is affordable to them. It doesn't matter the money you have. That was totally different in Cuba in the past, but that could take long in talking about that. I don't want to go into that, but thank you for making this question, because that made me talk about one of the pillars of the Cuban revolution.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I would like to express one more point, important point here. We are proud as Ankara University to have a chair of Turkish culture in Havana University. So we teach, actually, we are part of your educational system. we teach in Spanish, Turkish language and Turkish culture and Turkish history, thanks to the collaboration of you diplomats and the academic system of your country. So we have come to the last question, which is going to be about the difficulties your country is facing. We all know, we all have grown up actually hearing about the difficulties lived in your country due to the embargo, to the blockade imposed by the United States of America. So could you please end up by giving some details of your country's relations with the United States, and if there were any changes during the pandemic? Did anything change during the pandemic?
Yeah. Okay, so first, the blockade, because I know that people know like embargo something, it's an euphemism, the embargo, because it's putting like the relations, the difficulty, that the issue is only bilateral one. And it's not like this, people are tracked, banks are tracked in order to try to stop, countries, companies to make a business with us. We call this extraterritorial impact of embargo. For example, the blockade, sorry. For example, if you have a company here that the owner is the US citizen, and you produce in Kia in Turkey a product with more than 10% of this product coming from the US, you cannot sell to Cuba, even having this company based in Turkey. So it's not embargo, it's a blockade, because it's something that tried to stop Cuba, to isolate Cuba and to collapse our economic system and to make the Cuban situation really become desperate, worse, that people become poor, in order to have all raising in Cuba to stop to kill, to stop the government, to make it the government not governing anymore our country. So this is idea to make the people so desperate that they come to the street and they blow up the political, the government system. So this is the real intention, and that was mentioned at the beginning of the blockade was imposed when they realized that most of the Cuban people support the revolution, the Cuban government. That is has been very clear. I don't want to come to that because that would take long, but this is a real meaning of the blockade. You know, there has been a lot of effects on the blockade. You know, every year around last year, for example, we impacted in an economy for more than $4.3 billion. You know, the impact, the concrete impact of that. You know, $138 billion since the blockade was imposed to Cuba. That impacts all sectors of economy. You know, I don't imagine any country around the world not having, you know, the US trying to target them and pushing them and avoiding to, you know, putting them in the situation that they don't have it, economic activities on that. They try to track, you know, as I say, the economic or financial transaction done with us, you know, on this. They try to stop, you know, chips to come to Cuba and to send merchandising and to go into trade into that. So there are many consequences from the blockade in our economy, in our life. But let me, you know, in the last period, the US government have taken, since the Obama time, have taken more than 100 actions, measures against us, you know. And during the pandemic, there has not been, you know, not any stop about that. Last week, we are imposed 3 new measures. For example, the one I told you about the Marriott hotels in Cuba, not licensed anymore to continuous operation, to making sanctions, putting sanctions to 7 companies, Cuban one, including the one that contribute, that have a relation with the Western Union in order to send the transfer remittances of Cuban to the Cuban families in Cuba. So there have not been any stop at all, despite what many personalities in the international community say. You know, let me use this moment to thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs here, Mr. Chaucholu, for the letter that he wrote, you know, some time ago to a newspaper in the US, where he advocated to stopping the sanction during this moment of pandemic. You know, he has been one of the personality that speak out about this. You know, how come in this moment, instead of having solidarity, instead of, for example, to stop, you know, stop the payment for the foreign debt of a country, how come in this moment you continues imposing, you know, that's it for the US, imposing major sanctions like this against countries like Cuba and others. But let me, you know, before coming to aim on this, let me go for a positive mood on that. I think that here in Cuba we have all the conditions to overcome this situation. So there are stories that say that our economy will be affected around 3.7% of our internal gross product will be affected in this way. But nevertheless, we having possibilities to, you know, to try to not be so much affected like all the ones in Latin America that by Cuba and around the world that will be affected. You know, we having a system with a strong leadership, with a very strategic, you know, very strategic platform in order for our future to visualize this and to have the areas where we decide in the area, the sector where we can, put all our efforts in order to overcome the situation. I'm already decided on that. A system, we have a great participation of everybody, a kind of a system that have a great standard of life or expectancy of life, as I told you before, a system that really protects the people, everybody, in order to overcome the difficulty. So we already have defined that in biotechnology, in tourism, in renewable energy, in agriculture. We have it great possibility to have it, to support our development, that we will not stop our development. Some of this area, Turkey can be very helpful to us, that we can exchange, as I told you before, ideas and possibilities. After this conversation, we will continue having discussion. Next week, I will have one with DAIC, and with other entities here in Turkey, in order to emphasize and to base more our relation with different countries around the world, in order to diversify more economy and to make us better prepared in order to overcome the difficulties.
Thank you very much for participating, Mr. Ambassador. It was a great honor for us to have you here in this 1 hour. We have remembered and we have learned lots of things about Cuba, thanks to your participation. I would like to wish you an excellent afternoon and best of all for your country. Thank you very much.
So let me say you the same. We are, as I told you at the beginning, we are very glad to be here in Turkey, posted as ambassador in a great country, in a friendly country, in the country of powerful past, powerful present, and more powerful future. A country where we have not yet, come to a situation where we both are using all our potential in order to increase our economic relation, financial relation, trade relation. We have more things to do, and we all have more possibility to really outdate and upgrade our relation in this area, in order to come to the same level that we have it in the political, cultural, and other aspect of the bilateral relation. And thank to the Ankara University for the invitation, and for you personally, because you are the mastermind of the idea. Let me tell you, for everybody here, you are the mastermind, and inshallah, as you say here, we come back again to this exchange with Ankara University. You are a student, with your student, with your professor and other interest person here in the Ankara University, very prestigious one, and we are very much flattered to be invited and to be a pioneer for Latin American ambassador in participating in this exchange. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you. All the best for you and your family. And again, remember, this is very important. I was putting down for everybody, okay? Everybody, okay. That's it for everybody to using and to take your measure to protect. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Good luck.